Rodda in the morning from the Hidden Killers podcast.
Well, I wonder if we have anybody listening who has a angle grinder, also known as a side grinder or a disc grinder. It's a handheld power tool used for grinding, an abrasive cutting device, and polishing. It's Stacy Cole and Carol Hughes, and I'd like to say that we're going to talk about maybe home improvement, things like that, but no, we are talking about murder with a power tool here, and it looks like you and Tony have done this story before.
Oh, yeah, we talked about this one the other day, and this is just horrendous. I don't want to even think about how horrific it must have been. Can't imagine.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it's also a lesson in what happens when you do meth for 30 years or 20 years probably.
Well, even a year. I've known some people who've gone down that road. They're not the same human being. There's nothing left of their brain. One of the court cases, I can talk. One of the court cases that we covered was Taylor Shabiznis.
Oh my God.
Remember that one?
Her brain is fried.
She was using meth. I'm fairly certain she's the one who had sex with her boyfriend and then chopped him up and left his head in a bucket for his mom to find. So yeah, meth does horrific things to people. And I'll be very honest, when I read this story, I'm not real up on home improvement equipment. I've got some friends who do like woodworking and things. So I looked up what an angle grinder is. This is something that you've got to be very careful not to get your hands in front of because it will slice and dice you.
Oh.
I know. Okay. So here's the story. In Florida, shocking that it was Florida, a 37-year-old man with a substantial criminal record and a lengthy history of methamphetamine use is now in custody, accused of the murder of his 16-year-old son. It's alleged that he used an angle grinder to commit this heinous act on Labor Day morning. Stephen Thomas Rodda, not sure, the suspect, reportedly seized the power tool at a mobile home in Lake Wales, where he took the life of Stephen Lee Rodda, his teenage son. Following this horrific act, he cautioned the boy's grandfather not to enter the dining room within the residence. The Polk County Sheriff, Grady Judd, on Monday said, once again, in just 8 days' time, we've got another parent who has murdered their child. In Polk County, in Florida, they also had another horrific murdering of a child. This time it was
I didn't know
over
that.
A custody dispute.
And what's going on with that lately? It seems like there have been parents murdering their children and spouse, and there seems to have been a lot of that in the last few months.
Part of me, and I don't want to alienate anybody in Florida, but Florida has its own set of issues. Sometimes I think the heat gets to people. I don't know. There's a lot of depression in the world. There's a lot of mental illness. I think we're just seeing a lot of that coming to fruition lately. I don't have an explanation. I really don't.
And a lot of bad parenting. Oh my God, the horrific stories about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the victim had been residing with his 65-year-old grandfather, Thomas, providing assistance while his grandmother was undergoing rehabilitation, according to the sheriff. According to investigators, the grandfather left home at 8 a.m. to visit his wife in rehab, returning around 11 a.m., only to be met by the suspect, the father, who uttered, "I would not go in there if I were you. I killed someone. You may need to call the police." Well, you killed your son. That's not just someone, but your son. You know, it's not like there was a break-in and you killed the intruder. No, this was your son.
And does he even know it was his son?
That's a really good question.
I mean,
interesting question.
His brain is probably so fried. Because they said he's been doing meth since high school. And he's 37. So he's been doing meth for 20 years.
Wow.
So imagine.
Okay.
You know, and I just think there would be, there's just extreme psychosis that goes with meth use anyway. But to be doing it that long, I can't imagine. And I feel bad for his grandfather. He has been dealing with this for 20 years or longer in trying to help his kid, and there's no helping him, especially now.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen Lee Rodda, who had 3 siblings, was an 11th grade student studying to become an electrician. He was on the verge of starting employment at Burger King the following week. The sheriff expressed profound sorrow, stating, "It breaks our heart. There aren't adequate words to explain how horrific this event is. He was a stand-up, stellar young man." Following the encounter with his father, the suspect did flee the scene. Deputies apprehended him approximately a mile west on Highway 60. The suspect was attempting to leave the area at the time of his arrest. Now, according to the sheriff, the suspect said, "You probably need to read me my rights." You think?
I would happily read you your rights.
But what's astounding to me is that usually somebody who does meth, they're not in their right mind, but he mentioned that he had killed someone. He tells the sheriff, "You probably need to read me my rights." So there's some sort of awareness going on there, isn't there? I mean, they may even bring this up in court.
I mean, he knew he killed somebody. I don't think that gets you a pass in any way. What I find really, really sad about this story, this guy wasted his entire life. Who knows what he could have been. And I can only imagine what he put his own family through up to this point. If you're dealing with a son, maybe, I don't know if his parents have been married at some point, but when you're dealing with an addict for that long, life has been hell. But this kid, this son, was breaking that cycle. He was going to high school. He wanted to be an electrician. He got a job. He was saving up money to buy a car. Like, he was a good kid. And he wasn't taking after his dad.
Yeah, he was trying to better himself. He wanted to be an electrician. That in 11th grade, I mean, he was already studying to be an electrician. He was taking that initiative to better himself.
That's what makes me so sad about this. And, he had siblings, and now everybody there's horror on top of it. Not only was this poor child killed, but killed by his father, and in an incredibly brutal way.
Yeah.
So
Horrific.
I don't imagine how the family, how do you wrap your brain around that? So there's a lot of trauma that's going to live with these people forever.
Yeah. They will never be the same.
That's what's so sad about this story.
It's just horrific. The sheriff said, "We lost a great young man, and we've got an evil, evil man in custody. And we're going to do our best to see that he spends the rest of his life in prison." The criminal history of this man spans various locations across the United States, including South Carolina, where he had an outstanding warrant, but had not been extradited. I don't think that's going to be a priority at this point. They've got him for something bigger. I guess the only way to sum up this story is to just say drugs are bad.
You're locked into the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.